Thanks, Nancy. So welcome everyone. Um, just to start, so a brief overview of Goodwill, for those of you who may not be so familiar with us. We have been around in the UK for over 25 years. We have helped over 2,000 businesses from a variety of industries grow or scale in the UK. And we help our customers understand the complexities of UK business culture. We cover four departments as our core, that being HR. Myself and Helen are here from the HR department today, payroll, finance, governance, and virtual office. So we have business advisors who are skilled across all of those areas, and we also work with partners for any areas where we can't assist in-house to give that full service offering. So, as mentioned, Helen and I are here from the HR department today, and we will be covering a few topics, namely being the employer responsibilities in terms of well-being KPIs, how to spot mental health issues in the workplace, and also how to improve mental health or minimize mental illness in the workplace. And what mental health strategies big companies are adopting and whether smaller companies should be following suit. And we'll also have a very brief interlude about what future changes will be coming as well, in the same vein as the wellbeing topics in this webinar. So I'll kick us off. So what is employee wellbeing? So first off, no one wants stressed, unhealthy, or unhappy staff who don't engage or perform well. I would hope that that would be obvious. But employee well-being is a multi-dimensional construct consisting of psychological, physical, and social aspects. So adopting an integrated approach to employee health and well-being can prompt higher levels of engagement and productivity, whilst also fostering good organisational culture and commitment. So we're all human, and as we journey through life and work, of course, life events take place. And that could be anything from starting or growing a family. It could be menopause. It could be becoming a carer for a child or older person. It could be a bereavement, financial pressures. There could be some addiction issues. So we just need to recognize this as an employer that we are not infallible. So why should you focus on this as an employer? In recent history, we saw that the pandemic showed us that there was a need for more of a duty of care, and businesses were really strong-armed into recognizing that. But the bottom line is that there are higher sickness rates even now, and the government is very much motivated to get people back into work. And for that, the workplace needs to cooperate and build strategies that support health and well-being. So if we look at more recent statistics, so the Office for National Statistics showed that those who were inactive because of long-term sickness remains at a historically high level currently. So the UK claimant point, sorry, or count, as of January 2024 had increased by 14,100 on that month, and by 61,200 on the year to 1.579 million. So that is a lot of people who are out of work for long-term sick. So if we think about employee retention, if employees feel supported, they're more likely to stay with an organisation and perform well at work. There is a moral duty to recognise that employees can't split who they are at home and at work, and companies need to recognise that they should contribute positively to employee well-being. There's definitely been a cultural shift, particularly with the younger generation, that employees expect more social conscious from employers. And this in turn, well, the hope is that this in turn will help to attract and retain employees within the workplace. But we should also acknowledge that presenteeism is still a risk, with people working when they're maybe unwell. And this trend has perhaps increased more with more people working from home, either permanently or on a hybrid working basis. Perhaps employees maybe wouldn't have been well enough to come into the office, but maybe they're well enough to work from home. And there is an evolving landscape with social changes. So as well as the younger generation being interested in employers, sorry, having a social conscience about these things, there's definitely a growing interest in women's health. And there's also a shift towards becoming more open about mental health as well. So again, we are certainly seeing this as being more prevalent within the younger generation. So I'm going to pass off to Helen to discuss mental health further.
Thanks, Jackie. The next topic I'm going to talk about is employer responsibilities in terms of well-being. So, employees have a wide range of legal rights and protections when it comes to their mental health within the workplace. There's a common law duty of care for all employers for the safety of their employees. Also, the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974 and the Management of Health and Safety at Work Regulations 1999. So you have both a common law and a general legal obligation to ensure the health and safety of your employees at work and provide a safe working environment for your employees. So during the current climate, that includes both employees coming into the office or coming into the workplace, but also working from home, as Jackie said, whether that's on a permanent home working basis or a hybrid working. So breaching this legislation doesn't create a direct rights for employees to sue their employers for compensation, but it definitely can provide evidence in a personal injury case and can prove a breach of the common law duty of care. If an employee has a mental health issue, it must be taken really seriously, as this duty of care for the health and safety of your employees includes mental health. Most mental health conditions are likely to satisfy the legal definition of disability under the Equality Act 2010, and this means that those with mental health conditions are likely to be protected from disability discrimination and be entitled to reasonable adjustments from you as their employer. So with this in mind, it's vital to ensure that you know how to spot the signs of stress, anxiety, depression, or any other mental health issues that line managers and supervisors, so they're clear on what to look out for and what action that they need to take. Of course, there's a difference between stress and pressure. So when we talk about pressure, we may experience this frequently, and indeed it may be motivational. But however, when we experience excessive pressure without the ability to recover, then it can feel too much and we may feel like we can't cope. Employee burnout is a terminology that we hear a lot of, and if you aren't considering your employees' well-being, including workplace stress, then this can lead to employee burnout. This can lead to a decline in motivation and productivity, as well as a lack of job satisfaction being among the top issues. On a personal level, employees may struggle with emotions and physical exhaustion, which can lead to sickness, absence, and resignation, which all cost you money. We'll go on to look at some of the symptoms of employee burnout a little bit later, and we'll also look at some specific initiatives that you can use to try and support your employees' well-being, and we'll cover those off shortly too. However, in terms of what you need to do and what you need to think about as a responsible employer, these things might include introducing specific mental health practices, putting in policies in place that are followed and shared widely across the business, make reasonable adjustments when needed, so to make sure that you consider, for example, flexible working requests, amending employees' workloads, considering and working together in terms of a phased return to work, or providing time off for counselling services. It's important that you communicate and organise health and wellbeing programs across the business, and that you check in with employees regularly so that they feel that they can communicate openly and in a safe space. And it's really key to address any discrimination on the grounds of mental health and encourage staff to report this either to their line manager, whether you have an HR team, but it's really important that you have an open culture and that employees feel that they can report this throughout the business. Next, I'm going to hand off to Jackie to talk about the next piece.
Thanks, Helen. Okay, so wellbeing KPIs. If we look at the chart, there are three key areas which are important to employee wellbeing. So they are social, mental, and physical, which I touched on briefly at the beginning of this presentation. So the key reason you want to be focused on your employees' wellness and well-being is engagement. A well organization has well employees. And if you focus on well-being, then this impacts your employees positively, and that leads to better business outcomes for you. Physical and mental health can't be separated. We need to remember that people's home lives and personal lives collide, particularly now in our modern times. And so a whole person is, who you find that comes to work. And so you really need to adopt a holistic approach to your employee engagement. Employee engagement combined with well-being means better sustained employee performance and employees who feel trusted and valued. So if we think about what well-being KPIs are, um, we hear a lot about happiness in the workplace, but how do we define happiness? It could be how positive someone feels that they will be able to accomplish a goal and feel good about it. So if we break it down further, it's maybe looking at their contribution plus their satisfaction in making that contribution. So managing to capture how happy your employees are can help you identify what's impacting them positively and negatively and how to address that. The simplest way to capture that could be to ask for employee feedback. So ask how your employees are feeling, both overall and with regard to specific aspects of their work life. And these sorts of surveys or meetings on this topic are really only successful if there is the ability to be transparent, honest, and open. So if you are encouraging that sort of culture in the workplace, then you're going to get better data, I suppose. You'll know that you've got people who feel that they're sharing in a safe space. If you're not quite there yet, and there are other ways to monitor and measure employee sentiment to see if your wellness programs or initiatives are working. So the first would be to track habits. So monitor how many people are repeatedly taking part in wellness and wellbeing activities that you are putting in place. Some organizations use self-reported wellbeing metrics, such as whether or not their employees feel that they are living and working with purpose, or how stable they are emotionally and financially. We would also consider workplace metrics like sick time used, turnover rates, the amount of overtime being used. These things can all be tied back into business metrics and outcomes. And really, we should be monitoring wellness like this. We can track the correlation between wellness metrics and business metrics, like sales that you might be making, for example, to see how wellness is tied to business results. Well-being means an engaged workforce, and an engaged workforce means better business outcomes. So it's really an opportunity to focus on well-being strategies in the workplace for you. I'm going to hand back to Helen.
Thanks, Jacqui. I'm going to talk about how to spot, improve, and prevent mental health in the workplace in the next couple of slides. So the first part is to talk about how to spot these pieces. So quite often we still find that mental health is still the elephant in the room in many places, many workplaces. People are maybe scared of being open with their line managers or with their teams. They're scared of being discriminated against. And while managers often shy away from the subject or fear that they're making it worse or provoking legal consequences, as we've already talked about, the consequences of an employer not doing anything is fairly great. So it's really important that you have that open dialogue. So as a starting point, we would suggest that you really look at training your line managers to spot the signals of mental illness. And we find that early intervention is best. So I wanted to talk about the potential workplace triggers for distress that you might find in a range of mental illnesses. And they might include the employees working longer hours or not wanting or not taking breaks, setting themselves or having unrealistic expectations and setting unrealistic deadlines for themselves, working in really high pressure environments, having a lack of control over their own work or having unmanageable workloads. Lone working is another impacting factor, and having negative relationships or poor communications with their line managers or across the business. Next slide, please. For those employees who are experiencing burnout, it's likely to occur when they expect too much from themselves, where they fear that their work isn't enough, they're feeling inadequate or incompetent, they feel unappreciated, or they aren't a good fit for that job. So this all links into having really good communication channels with your line managers and across the business, and to look at and link into those KPIs that Jacqui has spoken about. So what should line managers look out for, particularly when we're talking about maybe remote working, or those that are working from home solely, or have some hybrid working in place? So some indicators that line managers might want to look at, there's a broad range, there's some listed here on the screen. So employees may experience fatigue, headaches, tearfulness, they might be have experienced lateness, increased sickness levels that Jacqui's already mentioned, anxiety, they might have excessive sweating, changes in their sleep patterns. I'm not going to go through all of the pieces on the screen here, but there's a fairly extensive list there that you can look at. And it's often noticeable for line managers that to see if it's not a typical behaviour of an employee. Of course, just if one or more symptoms are observed, we can't jump to the conclusion and always assume that there is a mental health issue. But it's really good practice to check in with your employees and see if they are doing okay, and to really open that door for the communication and to be as supportive as you possibly can. And that's really key, to open that door and to have that communication lines open. The next piece I'm going to talk about is how to improve mental health within the workplace. So if an employee expresses or has communication with you, or you suspect that there are mental health issues, or it is disclosed, it's really crucial that you as a line manager facilitate an early conversation about what the individual's needs are, and to identify and implement an appropriate support and any adjustments that they might need. It's basic good people management skills are essential here. If an individual doesn't trust their line manager, they're unlikely to talk about things openly, to talk about a sensitive issue such as mental health with them. This session, unfortunately, today is too short to talk about specific breakdowns of how to deal with these meetings here. But of course, if you have a situation that you would like to discuss with us, we're happy to help, and we can talk through the specifics of that case with you. But some basic tips here are, like many mental health problems or many health problems, most people prefer an open and honest inquiries over reluctance to address the issue. Often employees don't feel confident and comfortable speaking up, so a manager making that first move to open a dialogue can be really key. The Charity Mind has some good hints and tips on how to approach the topic. Phrase questions in a really simple and open and non-judgmental way to help employees explain in their own words what's happening and how they're feeling. It's also important to note and be prepared for some silences, and to be patient with your employees. Managers should explore how to address any difficulties which are work-related, which might in turn help them cope with any problems in other areas of their lives. Remember, in particular, when we're talking about remote working environments, that work can affect home life and work life, and vice versa. Managers should be encouraged to speak to their employees, and their employees to seek appointments or accessing their GP services as a first step. And this can ensure that they're aware of any support that might be available from the company. And Jacqui will talk about some options for you later on. But these might include, do you have mental health first aiders? Do you have an HR department? Do you have confidential employee assistance helplines available? And it might be that we need to look at an occupational health assessment as well. And then next, I'm going to talk about how to prevent some of these points that we've been talking about. So we've spoken throughout this presentation so far that it's really key to have good communication and people management skills. So these go a really long way to preventing stress and poor mental health among employees. Have a look at your induction program. So it's a key to have a really good, strong induction program. It's important for new employees. Starting out in a new role can be really stressful and an unsettling experience. People are often given insufficient guidance about expectations and procedures, and this can undermine people's confidence and could trigger problems or exacerbate existing symptoms. Look at management style. So good line management can't exist in a vacuum. Senior managers influence how line managers see their roles and their duties. And we also need to remember line managers may also be suffering from mental health issues themselves and may need support from the senior management team. The HSE guidelines on stress at work, there's information on there that you may want to review. And also, finally, on this slide, talk about building resilience. So focus on building resilience and coping techniques in the workplace. To be the most successful, it takes a three-pronged approach to build individuals, build teams, and have organisational resilience. And now I'll hand over to Jacqui.
Thanks, Helen. So I guess as smaller companies, we always look to see what the big companies perhaps are investing in first, and maybe what's possible within our capabilities to follow suit. Of course, a lot of bigger companies are investing in the physical side of their employees' health. So looking after fitness, diet, sleep, energy levels, so that employees approach their challenges with zeal. Also looking at purpose, so identifying what really matters to employees and connecting to that as much as possible in all that they do. Mental, so managing mental choices and reactions to distractions, pressures, challenges, and adversity. And also emotional, so finding ways to feel positive and confidently face the challenges that life throws at them. So one very well-known consumer brand believes that to build a purposeful business with purposeful brands, that they need to encourage their employees to bring their purpose to work. And they've developed a Discover Your Purpose workshop to give people the opportunity to identify their personal purpose and to put that at the head of their development and career. And they've also looked to break the stigma on mental health, which is something that that we've spoken about a bit earlier in the presentation. So this particular company, their approach focuses on culture, leadership, prevention, and support. They are educating their employees and raising awareness of mental health, as well as building capability on mental health support. And like to do this, they are providing access to self-help tools for individuals and teams. They've also built a strong foundation of flexible access to expert mental health support and the ability to have mental health conversations with peers. So they have provided a global employee assistance program that not only gives employees access to counselling services, but also to mindfulness-based stress reduction courses, life coaching, financial well-being, and resilience training. And they do believe that prevention is the best cure. So they've expanded their mental health champions network globally, where employees can have peer-to-peer mental health conversations. They've also recognised that they have an ageing working population. And in some markets, people need to be able to learn new skills and relearn others. As well as working in hyperconnective and highly diverse teams. So that could be a challenge, and there is some training around that. They want to enable their employees to embrace change and to become resilient. And again, they're doing that through supporting good mental health, tackling the potential loneliness caused by increased digitalization, and helping their employees to limit damaging health behaviours. So for everyday things, they're encouraging their employees to take 20 minutes of physical activity per day. to take breaks and to get that mental energy boost. They're also encouraging the use of video calls, regular team check-ins, which I think most businesses are doing now today, post-Brexit. Sorry, post-pandemic, sorry. My Okay. And then another major food brand are offering another kind of approach where they are offering a range of perks that indirectly ease staff work stresses. And they're offering things such as flexible working hours, free breakfast, free gym membership. And this is encouraging workers to be healthy and happy through exercise. They're also offering yoga clubs, which is a great way to practice mindfulness, as well as running club, and also offering mental health resources to all of its staff, including an EAP system, which I also mentioned earlier as part of the other bigger brand. So again, as smaller companies, we appreciate that it can be very difficult to find or to offer the same level of support. But there are some elements that you can incorporate as part of your strategy. Um, so Perkbox might be one of those things. So this is something that Goodwill also use internally. So Perkbox are a company that offer commercial perks, but they also have a very good well-being platform as well that offers a lot of mindfulness style perks as well as exercise style opportunities and an EAP system. So that's something that you can offer for quite a low cost. You could offer other similar companies style. There are like other similar companies to Perkbox out there, as I understand. You could also offer private medical insurance packages. They sometimes offer counselling, as well as gym perks as well attached to that, so gym discounts. You could offer a buddy system that encourages peer-to-peer support system, and offer an open door policy to talk about mental health and to encourage a more open culture. And coffee catch-ups weekly, that could be something else that you could implement as well. So to offer more of a social aspect. So what does this actually mean for you as a company? It's vital really to think about an employee action plan. So what can you put in place to support your employees? What initiatives could you maybe roll out? On an individual basis, are there any workplace adjustments needed? So do you have anyone that you already know that needs workplace adjustments, or has anyone requested something specifically from you? Look at how you're managing absence and return to work. So how are you monitoring that at the moment? How, are you undertaking regular return to work meetings with those employees who've been off sick? And do you offer occupational health referrals? So that may be absolutely needed for specific cases. So if you have any long-term absences, then you should consider that. Also, if you have someone that maybe wants to come back to work, but they're maybe still poorly, maybe you need their intervention to look at returning to work and looking at phased return to work as well. It's not all about money. And although you should take a look at your rates of pay to see that you are paying market rates to your employees, there are other things that you could be doing. So look at additional paid leave that you offer, perhaps. So do you offer enhancements to your maternity and paternity and shared parental leave types? For leave that is currently legally unpaid, so things like bereavement leave and carers leave, would you maybe offer some payment for this, recognizing that it is a tough time that your employees are going through when they need to take that sort of leave? Can you offer flexible working? So looking at your hours of work and location. Do you have policies in place to communicate your company position on all of the things that I've just mentioned? And do you offer safe working practices and working environments? So are you offering DSE assessments for your home and office staff? Do you offer menopause support and policies to your staff? What about retirement planning? So do you have a policy in place? Do you speak to your staff? Do you promote phased retirement? So that could be reducing to 3 or 4 days a week, maybe. Maybe you could offer a wellbeing calendar. So that's something that Goodwill also offer internally, where there are activities arranged on a monthly basis that they can range from short educational sessions to charity events. But really, it's an opportunity to get together and have some fun. You could think about physical activities when employees are working. So if they have mainly a desk job, maybe you want to introduce walking clubs or walking meetings. If you have a social media platform at work, don't be afraid to talk about mental health and well-being matters. Promote this, but it must be genuine. And encourage the leaders in your business to be authentic and talk about their own experiences to encourage an open and honest dialogue within the workplace. So again, if you've only got a small bit budget, we do obviously appreciate that is your position, but there are facilities out there that you can take advantage of. We'd be happy to speak to you to see if you have any options. So I did touch on Perkbox as an example, but some of your insurances might have some facilities on the side that you're maybe not taking advantage of, such as a lot of life insurance policies have options for counselling and so on that you might not be aware of. Be aware of the tax implications of any financial contributions that you may give your employees. So if you give them gym memberships as an example, or wellness or well-being contributions, then there can be tax implications for employees on that front. And as Helen did touch on earlier, you can reach out to us at Goodwill if you need to speak about anything. We don't expect you to be experts. And if you need any help on signposting employees to the right mental health support, we are happy to help. And we're happy to have a chat just as a sounding board for ideas if you need it. Fine. And then could I have the next slide, please? Thank you, Nancy. So we did want to cover off some future changes that are coming in the same vein as this wellbeing webinar. So of course there are a lot of changes happening over the next year, but we just wanted to focus on the wellbeing aspects. So of course there is statutory sick pay that most of you on this call will be aware of, which is currently constructed in a not very employee-centric way. There will be the removal of the lower earnings limit, and the waiting period requirements will be reduced from 4 days to 1 day, and that will be coming in April 2026. Still going to be at statutory sick pay rate, however, so be aware of that. There will be some further enhancements to sexual harassment protections. So from April 2026, whistleblowing protections for protected disclosures regarding sexual harassment will come into place. And then from October 2026, there will be a requirement for employers to take all reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment of employees, sorry. There will be an obligation for employers to not permit the harassment of their employees by third parties. So that was taken out of our legislation a few years ago, and now it is being reintroduced for third party liability, and that will be coming back in place in October 2026. Are there any questions? I don't think we've had anything come into the chat.
Not yet. We can give it a couple seconds.